My guest this evening is a director, a producer, an actor, and the recipient of 1 Academy Award and 3 Emmys for his portrayal of Professor Kingsfield in The Paper Chase. He has been seen in such blockbusters as the film Holy Moses and The Fog, and has appeared on television in a number of long-to-be-remembered TV commercials. One other interesting piece of information about him, his voice is an impersonator's delight. He is none other than the distinguished actor and recipient of the 1982 Leona Gerard Lectureship Award, John Houseman. After that long introduction, good evening, Mr. Houseman, and thank you for taking a few minutes to speak with me tonight.
Good evening, and I'm sorry that you selected 2 of the really bad pictures I made as the examples of my work in pictures, but we'll let that pass.
Yes, I'm going to be talking about the good ones later on, so I wanted to get those out. I'd like to begin speaking of your extensive career with the founding of the Voodoo Macbeth, the company in which you met your lifelong friend Orson Welles. What brought you 2 together, and what role did you play for the initial opening of the company?
Well, it was not a company, it was part of the Federal Theater of the WPA. It was the Negro unit. And through circumstances which are much too complicated to go into now, I found myself heading that unit. And I decided that I would like to try 2 kinds of productions, one realistic and the other classical. And when you say classical, what you're really saying is Shakespeare. And I had a great problem finding a director because, unfortunately, due to lack of opportunity, there were very few or no black directors for the classics at that time. There are now. And so I'd seen Welles perform. He'd actually performed in a production of mine. We'd become very close friends, and I wanted to produce classical plays with him, but we could never raise any money on Broadway to do that. And here suddenly was this God-given opportunity to do it for the federal government, so we did.
In 1939, you and Mr. Welles began the Mercury Theater. Now, it is quite obvious that both you and Mr. Welles have very distinctive voices. Was that part of the reason you decided to go into radio?
Orson was a very successful radio actor before we formed our partnership, even before I'd met him. And among other activities that we did, Orson continued to make a very good living as an actor in radio. Then finally, after our success with the Mercury, the Columbia Broadcasting System offered him a show of his own on the air on Sundays as a sustaining show, and that was called the Mercury Theater on the Air.
Mr. Houseman, how were you chosen for the role of Professor Kingsfield in Paper Chase, and what sort of research did you do for the role?
I was chosen quite by chance. It just happened that the writer-director of that particular show was a very close friend of mine, and he'd worked for me as a stage manager. We'd known each other many years, and he was quite genuinely stuck by an inability to cast that part the way he wanted. And finally, in despair, he asked me if I would play it, and I waffled around a bit, and finally I said, of course I will. And we made a test, and the test turned out well, and that was it.
Was Professor Kingsfield a real person?
I'm going to talk about that tonight. Professor Kingsfield was a character of fiction, but he was actually based on a very famous professor at Harvard Law School, yes.
And just briefly, how was the role transformed to television?
There was no serious change or transformation. The same people made the television show who had made the movie, and we simply decided that we would, within the limits of within the conditions of the 2 arts, which are substantially different, we decided that we would make it as much, keep as much of the spirit and the tone of the film as we could, and I think we were totally successful in doing that.
Mm-hmm. Just on a humorous note, I've been asked by friends to pose this question to you. Why does an actor of such notoriety as yourself do car commercials?
That is not a humorous question. That is generally an impertinent question, which I'm asked all the time. And the answer is that it's very well paid, and the answer is that I only do commercials that I don't feel ashamed of, And as an actor, there are certain challenges to an actor, as an actor, to performing in commercials.
Finally, what are the future plans for John Houseman?
Well, the immediate future plans are to get rested and ready to do 7 more episodes of Paper Chase, which is going to happen this winter.
Thank you very much for speaking with me.
Thank you.